Welcome into Eye on Northeast Kansas, the podcast. This is where we recap some of the top interviews that you saw on our Eye on Northeast Kansas TV show. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. The show comes to you live from our WIBW TV studios in Topeka, Kansas at 4 o'clock Central Time, Monday through Friday. If you'd like to watch, you can catch it streaming online on WIBW.com. What a week this has been, and there has been one major focus in the city of Topeka that is potentially going to lead to the city of Topeka government owning a hotel. A little bit of the backstory here. This opened in the late 90s. At the time, it was called the Capitol Plaza Hotel. It was a John Q. Hammons property, and it really was a centerpiece, considered a more upscale hotel and something that would be very essential to the property it was located on. Shawnee County owned what was then known as the Kansas Expo Center. It's now called the Stormont Vail Events Center. The Manor Conference Center is also on the property. So the hotel kind of became the cornerstone, a great addition to that whole package that they could market to people who might want to have a convention or a conference here in town. Last week, the City of Topeka governing body met in executive session. When they came out, they voted to approve pursuing purchase of the hotel. The hotel was going to the auction this week, an online auction. It was up for bids. So the city was going to pursue purchasing it. Their reasoning, they had officials from the convention and visitors industry, the Visit Topeka president, supporting this. They said this is essential to Topeka being able to attract and retain convention and conference business. They said when Mr. Hammons, this was a John Q. Hammons property, and when he passed away in the past decade, it has significantly deteriorated to the point where they felt we were losing business that could be coming to the capital city. So they voted in executive session last week to do this. The auction started on Monday, and Monday at 4, Topeka City Manager Steve Wade came onto the show, and he once again explained why the city was pursuing this. So this is where the podcast starts this week with our Monday visit from City Manager Steve Wade. City Manager Steve Wade is here to bring us up to date and lend a little bit more perspective, Steve, as to why this is all going on. So there was a special meeting a week ago. The governing body voted, yes, we want to pursue purchasing the hotel. Right. What all led up to that? How long have these talks been taking place, and why this decision?
So we knew in early April that this hotel was going up for auction, and we've looked for some local investors. We've looked for some regional investors that would be good to the city and certainly good for our economy, and this is a tough one. And so as we've looked at it, we know that the risk of that hotel falling into the hands of somebody who's not interested in investing into it, taking care of it, really does damage our tourism business. We're aware that some local groups are not coming to Topeka for their conventions, and we hate to see those go to other communities. We'd like to have them back, and this is a way to get them. How big a business is that, first of all, that makes you think this would be a good investment? It could be as much as 20 to 25 times what we're getting right now. So it's pretty sparse right now and lots of opportunity for improvement.
Why not just let it go to auction, though? Because it's being billed as a facility that would be ready to go for someone with minimal investment necessary. Why not just trust the auction process and say, it's a hotel, it's already there. It would be really easy for someone to snap up a property.
Sure. Sometimes you can't believe what's in the write-up for auction listings. And in this case, we know that there's a lot of money that would have to be put into it to bring it up to that 4-star, 5-star type of level. And so it's not something that somebody could buy cheap and not put any more money into it. It is going to require somebody that has a dedicated interest in making it the right place. On the surface, though, it seems, what does the city know about running a hotel and developing a hotel? We don't know anything about it, to be honest. So then what happens? If you're successful in getting it, what's the next step? So there are other communities, such as Manhattan, Overland Park. We noticed that Indianapolis just did this last month, that are providing the facilitation to do these operations. You go with professionals that know how to run a hotel, that know how to provide food and beverage services. That's not in our wheelhouse, right? So it takes partnerships, it takes collaboration, and that's where we're headed. Do you have someone in mind that you know is willing to step up and enter into this agreement with the city and make the investment? We don't have anybody on the hook right now. First of all, we have to win the bid, and if we do that, then we'll make a thorough search and carefully consider what our options might be and go from there.
How do we pay for it? Where is this money going to come from?
Sure. So right now, the city has a fair amount of general fund reserves. It's the rainy day fund, if you will. And so that's the immediate way to purchase it. More than likely, it'll be bonded, the actual sale. And so, like I said, we've got to win the bid first, and then we see where it goes.
But the city taxpayers still pay for those bonds, don't they?
Absolutely. No, it is taxpayer funded. If you go into a leaseback type of operation, which is certainly one of the things that we would like to see, then the city's, the taxpayers are refunded that money. We don't intend to buy a hotel and hold it for long. You know, really the goal here is to get it into the right hands.
So the auction, I just checked before we came in, opening bid was $2 million. It's at $2.06 million right now. But it does say reserve not met, which would then tend to have us believe that the seller or the receivership has some minimum amount that they actually want this to get to. What is the city's upper limit here? We
have not determined that, and certainly it wouldn't do us any good right now to say what that upper limit was, given the fact it's an option going into an auction. So, but we're being very careful with taxpayer money. You know, we've looked at it closely. We think we know what makes sense. And we're going to make sure that we stay at or below that threshold.
We would later learn that the resolution the governing body passed last week actually set a limit of $8 million for the amount of bonds to be issued in pursuing the project, though they could actually spend more than that. Just $8 million was the limit for bonds. So, of course, stories tend to have a plot twist, and one did come Tuesday night at the governing body's meeting. They started the meeting with a hour-long executive session, and then when they ended the meeting, they added a new resolution to the agenda, and that was approving an extended leave of absence for Steve Wade and appointing an acting city manager while Mr. Wade had that leave of absence. However, the city's pursuit of the hotel continued. The auction went on. The city continued to participate bidding. And when bidding ended Wednesday afternoon, the city revealed it was, in fact, the high bidder. $7.5 million was that high bid. With fees added on, the cost will be $7.67 million. So what happens next? There continued to be a lot of questions about this. The city said it will work with people in the private development and industry experts to pursue redeveloping the hotel. Exactly what those agreements are, not yet known. They are still finalizing the purchase documents here. One thing we do know is that Shawnee County continues to own the nearby event center known as the Stormont Vale Event Center now and Manor Conference Center. Since the hotel was built, there is a contract that was dated 1996 that has the hotel owners given management of Manor Conference Center. Under that contract, it started out with the developer, the hotel owner, would be paying the county $95,000 a year, and then that amount would increase along with the increase in the rate of inflation as the years went by. So what happens now? Shawnee County has told us that it would imagine that they would continue to work with whoever is the new hotel owner to honor that contract. The city has previously said that they would evaluate if they are successful in this purchase. They will evaluate each contract on a case-by-case basis, and it's still too early to say what they would do with each individual contract. Throughout the process, though, there have been some community members and also at least one city council member who's been asking, where was Shawnee County in all of these discussions? Did the city ask the county to join them in pursuing the purchase? Will the county be involved in anything moving forward with the hotel? Shawnee County Commissioner Aaron Mays joined us on Friday's 4 o'clock show, and here is that conversation as we wrapped up the week, still focused on this topic. I do want to start, though, by asking you about Hotel Topeka and everything that's been happening. Of course, get you all caught up. The city of Topeka has now had the high bid on an auction for the property. $7.67 million is the price. One question that has come out of this is Shawnee County's involvement. Did Shawnee County pursue any sort of a purchase? Did anyone come to you? Did the city come to you and say, hey, Shawnee County, let's do this together?
I think we had basically the same opportunity that the city of Topeka did. And ultimately, we didn't buy the hotel and they did. So I think that's really what it boils down to.
To be clear, does that mean you were bidding in the auction, though?
We were not bidding in the auction, no.
What are some concerns that the county maybe had that put the county in a different situation from the city when it came to actually pursuing a purchase of that amount?
Well, I guess I don't know. We had the same situation. It was a quick turnaround, auction situation, and a lot of uncertainty. But obviously we have a vested interest in it. We own the event center next door, as well as the Manor Conference Center. Taxpayers just paid for a $40-some-odd million renovation of that event center, and so its success is there's a lot riding on it, and so we want to make sure that that hotel is successful. And so I hope that whatever the city does with it, that I'm cheering for them. I hope that they do a really good job with it.
Do you think the county might be involved in the redevelopment plans, or how might the county support whatever happens next?
I think we're going to have to be. It's a symbiotic relationship between all of those entities that are on the Expo Center grounds. And so I don't envision any scenario in which we're not at the table trying to make sure that everyone's successful.
One way the county is going to have to be at the table is because there is a contract between Shawnee County and the owners of the hotel. It goes back to '96 when that hotel first opened, to manage Manor Conference Center. So what does the county need to do to make sure that once this sale is finalized, because the sale is not finalized yet, paperwork still needs to be finished up, you actually have someone who's going to be managing Manor Conference Center when that sale is final?
Yeah, and that'll be something that has to be negotiated. That contract is almost up, and so we actually extended it for the previous owners to get them through the auction process. So once that is the dust settles, I guess you could say, we'll go into negotiations with whoever the new owner ends up being, whether it's the city of Topeka or someone else.
How important is that conference center to the county's overall property plan for what happens with the event center, the conference center, and the hotel? You'd said it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, it is. And the hotel, the conference center, the event center, they're all working together. They serve different purposes, and the success of one is contingent on another. So, I mean, without the event center, the hotel doesn't do well. Without the hotel, the event center doesn't do that great either. And the conference center certainly doesn't as well either. Well,
we'll be watching those discussions unfold along with all of you. You have an interesting opportunity coming up. You said you leave for Washington when, and why are you going there?
I'm leaving in a couple days. I'm going to D.C. for the County Leadership Institute. It's a national leadership program that I was recently selected for, and so it's an honor. I'm happy to be able to do it. It's sponsored by the National Association of Counties. What
does it mean to you, and what do you hope to learn and be able to bring back from the experience?
I think that a lot of it is just meeting county leaders from around the country and kind of hearing what they have going on in their areas and how they deal with their challenges that they have. I mean, every area has unique challenges, and so maybe when things come along, I'll be better prepared as a result of this program.
So that's where we stand. A lot of wheels remain in motion when it comes to this subject. We'll be continuing to follow up. We asked Visit Topeka President Sean Dixon this week what happens once that sale becomes finalized, because the hotel is still open and operating as usual. So once the sale is finalized, who's going to take over the daily management? He told us he suspects that the folks who've been managing the hotel while it's been in receivership, the city likely will perhaps extend some kind of a temporary agreement with them to continue this while they explore the long-term options and decisions that are to be made. As for the city, until the sale is finalized, the purchase is finalized, they say they really have no further comment as far as what's going to happen in the interim. We'll, of course, continue to keep asking the questions and keep everybody informed on our air and online. Also on the Red Couch this week, we did talk about some other things as well. We had a really interesting discussion with Regina Platt. She is head of Restorative Justice for the Topeka Center of Peace and Justice. The Topeka Center for Peace and Justice was involved in a conference held over in Lawrence, Kansas at Haskell Indian Nations University earlier this week that focused on restorative justice. So just what is that? I asked that question to Regina when she came to the studio to visit. And it's a phrase I don't know if I'm necessarily familiar with. Restorative justice. What is that?
So restorative justice comes from an indigenous roots, right? Where the tribes called them in and not out. And so when harm is done within communities, we can quickly single individuals out, but the whole community is affected by this. And so throughout the state of Kansas, we have practitioners within the community, within the educational sector, and within the justice sector who are all gathering in one place at Haskell University to have an awesome, engaging time.
How do we apply that to modern communities and a modern approach to justice, the restorative aspect?
So in the ways that we can apply that, one part is when we think about our justice system is that we deliberately do it in a way where we hold people responsible, not accountable, but responsible, right? That means we identify those that were harmed and those that did the harm, and we sit them down to be able to have that conscious conversation that helps with the process, right? We cannot do the healing for them, but we can help them get in a position to be a part of a journey of healing. And so what that looks like is through victim offender mediation, within the court systems, parent-adolescent facilitation, parent-adolescent mediations, community building conversations. We at the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice as well within the schools, we have a restorative leadership program where we're sitting down with young people and helping them have them build those voices where they can advocate for themselves, not only within the school system, within the home and the community, the civic engagement piece within the persons.
I can see organizations taking an active role in that. What is the barrier or what obstacles would stand in the way of this actually being used as part of, say, a correctional facility program or a courtroom program?
The only barrier is not to do it. So I come from a criminal justice background. I worked for Kansas Juvenile Correctional Complex. And within the school, I was using the restorative concept, the restorative approach. Through an advocacy program, we had a restorative advocacy room called the Refocus Center, where youth were able to come in and regather themselves and be able to deliberately see what the root cause is, who the persons were that were harmed, and be able to have a reconnection conversation. It wasn't that adults were choosing it for them, they were choosing it for themselves. And so a safe environment where we coached them through being able to reconnect where the harm was being done at. And I think that society, if we're going to build a society that fluently can flow and build one another, we have to do it in a way where we give each other the skills and the space to do that. So our court system has to do more than just look at the harm, right? And deliberately give someone a charge, but actually look at the harm and look at the persons that were harmed and be able to have them to be a process, the community be a part of the process of healing.
So they can have better background, better skills, better mechanisms when they go back into society.
So when I reconnect with community, those coming out of the prison system, they're coming back into community. And if community was never a part of the process, it's hard for them to accept them back in. But if they're a part of the whole process, we're establishing ourselves in a way where we all win.
If you'd like to learn more about restorative justice, you can visit the Topeka Center for Peace and Justice website. That's topekacpj.org. A very interesting conversation. So glad Regina could join us to talk about that. Also in the studio with us this week was Phelicia Glass. We always enjoy visiting with Phelicia. She is a social worker, also a certified grief counselor. She always has a smile on her face, even when she's addressing tough topics and tough issues like the grieving process and our emotions. We had a little bit of a visit with her about some of the different things and attitudes that have to do with how we grieve and just what's right and what's wrong. Gosh, it's such a wide-ranging issue. Grief is tough.
Yeah. Grief is hard work. It is hard work. So the thing that I always talk to people about is that, one, we all have experienced some form of grief, and if we haven't, we will. The other part of it is that we don't have to go through or experience grief alone. And so as a trained grief counselor, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do it alone, and all of your feelings are valid and they're yours to experience.
I think that's something that a lot of people question is, am I doing this right?
Yes.
Is there a wrong way to grieve?
Absolutely not. There's not. You know, in history, we talk about the stages of grief, and they're all very valid, but they make people believe that there's this start and stop and the end. Well, guess what? That's not true.
We should go right through denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance.
And accept it and move on. Look at you, right?
But the truth is, like you say, we can go back and forth on those stages.
Absolutely, like a roller coaster some days. And so the other part of it is understanding that I may never experience some of them, and acceptance doesn't mean that I am over my loss. And so the thing that people constantly say is, why do people tell me to move on? Why do people tell me just to get over it? Well, guess what? I have loved someone and I've lost someone, and they're a part of who I am. So getting over it is not what I'm going to do. Learning to live with their physical absence, I absolutely can do, but that requires me to embrace continuing the love within myself.
Is it wrong to get stuck, and I hate to say the word wrong, how do we know if we're being unhealthy in how we're coping with our grief?
You know, absolutely. So if we're doing things that are harmful to ourselves, alcohol, drugs, things that are taking us way left of our normal self, we're definitely getting too far away from it. If the grief and the grief experience is causing your life to be on hold, you can't get out of bed, you can't return to work, you can't parent, you can't love people, you literally can't embrace who you are every single day. So I call it the new you, because you're never going to be the person you were before that loss. If you cannot walk into that new you slowly, making little gains day by day, then you should talk to someone.
What about if you're the opposite direction? Because sometimes people look at someone who may be grieving, but on the outside, they're like you are all the time. They're happy, they're smiling, and you think, well, this possibly something must be wrong, because how can she be smiling if her loved one just passed away?
So it's also important to understand that people deal with grief differently. There is no right way or wrong way to do it, and no two people are going to do it the same. So just because you experience your grief and you have a different type of acceptance regarding your grief around how you want to hold it, how you want to carry it, that doesn't mean your way is wrong or my way is wrong. It just means we're doing it differently. So in my life, I've lost some significant loved ones in my life, but I celebrate through my grief. It doesn't mean I don't cry. You just may not see me cry. But I also might do things like, I've had parties for my brother who passed away. I celebrate by making their favorite meals. I do sunset meditations to honor them. I might light candles. We have a table at our home with all of our loved ones' pictures on it, or most of them, that we've gotten to a place of acceptance with, and we burn candles for them. All of those rituals are yours to own. They're yours to embrace and yours to share.
You have a program coming up that you're inviting people to, and you're calling it Grief Movement.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes, so Grief Movement is actually a research-based program that I am trained in. And so really Grief Movement is about embracing all of your feelings and emotions, coming to a place of acknowledging them, but honoring all of the energy that comes with those feelings and processing through a way of release. So it's kind of like yoga, but it's all about acknowledging and bringing presence to the person that we loved or the situation that we were in, and honoring the emotions.
There is literal movement
literal
involved.
Movement.
How does movement connect you with your emotions?
You know what? The reality is our body holds everything that we experience. So if we can imagine yourself holding that and being present with it and releasing it back to the earth so that you may heal in the process, it's amazing.
That Grief Movement workshop has ended, but you can still find out more about Phelicia and the program she's offering. Just visit thegriefcounselor.com. You can find a lot more information. She also has some information there just on mental illness in general, some screening Q&A type questions you can take to see if maybe there might be something you might need to talk to someone about. Always good information, always good to pay attention to our mental health. Fantastic visit with Phelicia. Great having you along for our podcast this week. We always enjoy these conversations. Remember, Eye on Northeast Kansas takes place Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Central Time. You can watch it live streaming on WIBW.com. You can also catch all of those videos on the website, as well as my Facebook page, WIBW Melissa Bruner. Our YouTube channel has our Eye on Northeast Kansas segments as well. Glad you could be along for the visit. Stay safe, everyone. We'll see you on the Red Couch.